Everyone's heard the story. The hardened atheist who faces a crisis, has a revelation, and suddenly finds God. Hollywood eats it up. Churches celebrate it. And entire ministries are built on these dramatic testimonies. Some even end up in courtrooms, textbooks, national news. So naturally, you'd think atheists are just one emotional breakthrough away from belief. That all it takes is the right story, the right moment, the right miracle. But when you actually look at the data and the psychology behind belief, something strange happens. A shocking pattern emerges. Most atheists don't convert, and when they do, it rarely lasts. In fact, it often backfires badly. Because what's going on beneath the surface isn't about emotion. It's not about intellect either. It's about something deeper. Hidden psychological defenses, neurological blind spots, and mental frameworks designed to resist belief, no matter how persuasive the message is. And once you see how it works, you'll understand why so many faith-based arguments fall flat. If you've ever wondered why faith arguments fall flat with skeptics, hit subscribe, because what you're about to learn changes everything. It's a story we've been told 1,000 times. The skeptic faces tragedy. They lose a loved one. They survive a car crash. They hit rock bottom. And in that moment of pain, they find God. The implication: emotion breaks the barrier. Trauma opens the door. All it takes is suffering, or awe, or a miracle, and even the most committed atheist will surrender to faith. But is that actually true? Let's start with the famous ones. Lee Strobel, Josh McDowell. Each of them claimed a dramatic emotional encounter with Christianity, and their stories have been paraded through churches for decades as proof that no one is beyond salvation. But here's what most people don't know. Psychological studies show that while emotion can create temporary belief shifts, it rarely produces lasting transformation, especially in those with strong prior convictions. In fact, when trauma does lead to religious conversion, it often comes from pre-existing belief structures, even if they were dormant. It's not new faith being born. It's old frameworks being reactivated. Now here's the twist. Most atheists don't have those frameworks, not anymore. When someone has consciously walked away from religion, they've usually done so by restructuring how they deal with meaning, morality, and mortality. So when trauma hits, they don't turn to the supernatural. They turn inward, or to community, or to philosophy, because that's where they've built their foundation. And here's something even more surprising. According to a 2020 meta-analysis in the Journal of Religion and Health, individuals identifying as non-religious or atheist often show higher psychological resilience during crises compared to those with unstable religious belief. Why? Because their worldview doesn't depend on divine meaning. They've already asked the hard questions and lived with the answers. This isn't just theory. Take the 2004 tsunami or the COVID-19 pandemic. Researchers noticed a striking pattern. Many believers lost faith in the face of tragedy, while most atheists didn't gain any. Emotion can shake the foundations, but if your foundation isn't built on faith in the first place, there's nothing there to crumble into. And it gets more complicated, because when a deeply committed atheist does experience something spiritual or overwhelming, their brain doesn't interpret it as divine. It processes it as neurological, chemical, emotional, a product of the mind, not a message from God. This is known as cognitive reinterpretation. It's when a person experiences something powerful, but filters it through their existing worldview. It's not denial, it's meaning-making. And for atheists, that meaning rarely includes the supernatural. Now let's talk about the real kicker. Even when atheists do have a moment that feels spiritual, a dream, a near-death experience, a sudden feeling of peace, they often double down on skepticism afterward. Why? Because of cognitive dissonance. They feel the internal tug, the emotional pull towards something they've long rejected. And instead of embracing it, they interrogate it, deconstruct it, disarm it. The same way religious believers reinterpret doubt as a test of faith, atheists reinterpret spiritual emotion as a glitch in the system. So what does this all mean? It means that emotion alone doesn't unlock belief. Not for those who've built an identity outside of it. Not for those who've retrained their brain to see the world without it. If you're relying on a crisis, a tragedy, or a transcendent moment to reach an atheist's heart, you're knocking on a door that's no longer there. But emotional triggers are just the surface. The real resistance lies deeper in how atheists process truth itself. So if emotional breakthroughs aren't enough, what is stopping atheists from converting? The answer might lie in something most people have never heard of. It's called the cognitive immune system. Just like your body learns to fight off viruses, your mind learns to fight off ideas it sees as irrational, inconsistent, or dangerous. This isn't a metaphor, it's a measurable psychological process. Neuroscientists have found that when we evaluate a belief, especially one that challenges our worldview, our prefrontal cortex lights up. That's the part of the brain responsible for critical thinking, decision-making, and judgment. It acts like a gatekeeper, and for many atheists, that gate is locked tight against anything that looks, feels, or smells like religious belief. But here's where it gets fascinating. This mental immune system isn't just defensive, it's adaptive. It doesn't just reject ideas, it learns from them, strengthens its filters, upgrades its firewalls. So every time an atheist encounters a weak argument for God, a misused Bible verse, a circular bit of theology, their internal defenses get stronger. It's like getting vaccinated, but instead of fighting off a virus, they're fighting off dogma. And just like physical immunity, it's built over time. Let's break that down. Imagine a teenager raised in a religious household. They're taught the Bible is true, God is watching, and belief is mandatory. But something doesn't sit right. They ask questions, they're told to stop, so they start investigating. They read, they debate, they deconstruct, and slowly, they begin to identify patterns in religious reasoning that don't hold up under scrutiny. They spot the inconsistencies. They recognize emotional manipulation. They see how claims are made without evidence and defended without logic. That process, that's the formation of a cognitive immune system. It's not just intellectual, it's neurological. Each time, the brain learns to spot a fallacy, reject an unverifiable claim, or question authority. It's reinforcing that firewall. Now here's the part most people miss. Once that system is in place, religious messaging doesn't even get through the front door. Not because the person is closed-minded, but because their mental immune system flags it as contaminated information. It's the same way you might instinctively dismiss a spam email or a get-rich-quick scheme. You don't need to open it because you've seen it before. This is why religious appeals often fail to resonate with atheists. It's not because they haven't heard them, it's because they've already processed them. dissected them, and built defenses against them. And ironically, the more simplistic or emotional the message, the faster it's rejected. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This immune response doesn't just apply to religious claims. It extends to any form of magical thinking, horoscopes, homeopathy, conspiracy theories. Once the system is active, it applies broadly, which means trying to convert an atheist with anecdote and emotion is like trying to infect someone who's already had the vaccine. You can try, but it won't take. And just like with a real immune system, the only way through is to bypass the triggers completely. But how? How do you speak to someone whose mind has been trained to reject what you believe at the core? Well, that depends on how that immune system was built, because not all of them are the same. Some were shaped by science, others by trauma, some by a long, lonely search for truth. And if you want to understand how that system became so strong, you have to go back to the beginning. If you're wondering how this mental firewall is built, it doesn't happen overnight. It starts early, and it's incredibly difficult to dismantle. So what happens when someone actually leaves religion? Not just doubts it, not just questions it, but fully, consciously walks away. That process is called deconversion, and once it happens, the door almost never opens again. According to long-term studies from the Pew Research Center and the Barna Group, deconverted atheists, people who once believed but no longer do, very rarely return to faith. In fact, the rate of religious recidivism among former believers is so low, it's statistically negligible. That alone should raise eyebrows. Why is leaving religion often a one-way door? Because deconversion isn't just a change of belief, it's a transformation of identity, a shift in how a person thinks, processes evidence, understands morality, and sees the entire world. And once that new framework is in place, there's no going back to how things used to be. Let's make it real. Imagine realizing one day that the things you were taught as sacred were based on claims you can no longer justify. The prayers that once comforted you now feel like whispers into the void. The stories that once gave life meaning now raise more questions than answers. That's not a moment, that's a metamorphosis. And here's where it gets even more important. Deconversion doesn't just remove belief, it often replaces it with psychological inoculation. You've been through the process. You know the structure of religious claims. You recognize the tactics, the emotional pull, the appeal to tradition, the fear of doubt. So when someone tries to reconvert you, you see it coming a mile away. It's like a magician showing you the trick and then trying to impress you with it again. That sense of illusion never fully goes away. Now, you might be wondering, aren't there cases where deconverted atheists do come back to religion? Yes, but they're rare and often temporary. Studies show that when it does happen, it's usually triggered by extreme trauma, social pressure, or the longing for community, not intellectual persuasion. And in many of those cases, the return to faith is unstable, short-lived, eventually questioned, and often abandoned again. Because once the spell is broken, once someone has truly seen behind the curtain, it's almost impossible to unsee it. This is why most atheists who once believed don't get pulled back in. They've already walked the path, they know where it leads, and more importantly, they know what it took to get out. It's not just rejection, It's reconstruction. They didn't just lose faith, they built something in its place, a worldview grounded in reason, evidence, and personal integrity. And that kind of structure isn't easily shaken. But what about the rare cases where atheists do convert? There's a catch, and it's not what you think. So what about the ones who do cross over? The atheists who claim they found God, who tell their story, who become the new poster children for redemption. They exist. But here's the part you rarely hear. Many of them come back to skepticism, back to doubt, back to atheism, sometimes louder than before. Let's look at the pattern. An atheist has a powerful emotional experience. They feel something transcendental. They call it God. They go public. Churches embrace them. Platforms elevate them. Testimonies are shared. Proof, they say, that no one is beyond salvation. But then, months later, sometimes years, they retract it all. They speak out. They say they were confused, under pressure, caught in a moment they couldn't explain, until later. And once they step back, they begin to dissect that moment, the euphoria, the social validation, the need to belong. And they realize they didn't find God. They found a feeling. One of the most well-known examples, Theremin Trees, a popular atheist content creator, once shared that he nearly converted in a moment of grief and vulnerability. But instead of diving into faith, he paused, analyzed, and realized that what he was chasing wasn't truth, but comfort. And that distinction is everything, because comfort can feel like revelation. It can look like divine clarity, but it doesn't last. Psychologists call this belief dissonance fatigue. It's what happens when a person holds a belief they want to be true, but can't fully defend. The mental tug-of-war wears them down, and eventually, something has to give. For many temporary converts, that breaking point leads right back to atheism. Why? Because the questions didn't go away. They were just drowned out for a while by emotion, by community, by the desire to believe. But once that noise fades, the doubts return. And this time, they come back stronger. Stronger because now they've seen both sides. They've lived the religious narrative, and they know where it cracks. So if religious messages don't work, what does? Can anything reach a committed atheist? So if sermons fall flat and emotional stories backfire, what does get through? What's the only language atheists understand? Not scripture, not salvation, not threats of eternal punishment. It's meaning, it's ethics, it's shared human experience, without the strings of supernatural belief. Let's be clear, atheists aren't immune to awe. They're not lacking purpose. They don't reject meaning. They reject meaning that's been pre-packaged in dogma. That's why traditional religious messaging fails. It assumes the conclusion. It speaks from a position of authority, divine authority, to someone who doesn't accept that authority to begin with. It's like trying to negotiate in a language the other person doesn't speak. But when the conversation shifts, when the framing changes from believe this to what matters to you, something happens. Take secular chaplains. Yes, they exist, and their entire role is built around meaning-making, grief counseling, and guiding people through existential crises without invoking God. They talk about legacy, connection, ethical responsibility. And because they speak without the pressure of conversion, they're often heard. Not because they're saying less, but because they're meeting people where they actually are. That same principle shows up in moral philosophy, You don't need divine command theory to talk about right and wrong. You don't need heaven to care about justice. You don't need hell to explain why cruelty is wrong. In fact, many atheists build their moral frameworks on reason, empathy, and lived human experience, not religious texts. So when conversations are grounded in shared values, not doctrinal truth, there's room to connect. You can talk about suffering without needing sin. You can explore meaning without invoking a creator. You can ask deep questions without demanding divine answers. And that's powerful. Narrative psychology backs this up. We're all meaning-making machines. We need story, purpose, identity. But where religion offers one narrative, atheists often construct their own, tailored to reality as they see it. So if the goal is connection, not conversion, you have a chance. Because it's not about persuading someone to believe what you believe. It's about speaking in a language they don't have to translate, a language of values, of mutual respect, of existential honesty. That's the only language that ever gets through. But even this has limits, and there's one final reason conversion rarely sticks. By now, we've seen how religious messages fall flat, how emotional appeals fade, and how reasoned debates rarely lead to belief. But there's something even deeper, something most people overlook. It's not about logic. It's not about evidence. It's about identity. For many atheists, non-belief isn't just a conclusion, it's who they are. It's woven into how they see the world, how they make decisions, how they understand themselves. And when you challenge that, you're not just questioning their worldview, you're threatening their sense of self. This is what psychologists call identity protective cognition. It's the tendency to reject ideas, and not because they're wrong, but because they clash with how we define ourselves. And it's not unique to atheists. It happens on all sides. But for someone who's left religion, often at great personal cost, family, community, belonging, the identity they rebuilt after that loss becomes sacred in its own right, and anything that threatens it gets shut down immediately. Now think about what religious conversion demands. It doesn't just ask someone to change their mind, it asks them to become someone else, to take on new beliefs, new behaviors, sometimes even a whole new social world. It's not just a decision, it's a reinvention. And for someone who spent years, maybe decades, constructing a life outside religion, that request feels invasive, even offensive. You're not just asking them to believe in God, you're asking them to dismantle themselves. And the human psyche resists that hard. Interviews with deconverted atheists confirm this. Many say they've developed an allergic reaction, not just to religious claims, but to the implication that who they are is broken, lost, or incomplete. That framing doesn't invite curiosity. It triggers defense, because to them, atheism isn't just about rejecting God. It's about reclaiming autonomy, rebuilding truth, reconstructing identity from the ground up. And that kind of self isn't easily surrendered. Which brings us to the real reason most atheists will never convert. And it's the most ironic of all. Here's the irony. The more you try to convert an atheist using religious tools, the less likely they are to listen. Not because they're stubborn, not because they hate religion, but because persuasion, when it feels like control, backfires. Psychologists call it reactance. It's a defense mechanism, a psychological rebellion that kicks in the moment someone feels their autonomy is under threat. And for atheists, Religious persuasion always feels like that. It doesn't matter how kind the messenger is, how well crafted the argument, or how moving the story. If it comes with the implicit message, "You need to believe what I believe," the wall goes up. Because at its core, belief isn't just intellectual, it's personal, it's voluntary. And the second it feels forced, the mind resists. That's the paradox of persuasion. The harder you push, the more resistance you create. And with atheists, whose identities are often shaped around skepticism, independence, and self-determination, that resistance isn't subtle, it's immediate. So every attempt to win them back with religious language, every gospel tract, every altar call, every warning of damnation, strengthens the very system designed to reject it. It's not just ineffective, it's counterproductive. But maybe that's the point. Maybe religion was never meant to convert atheists. Maybe it was designed to sustain believers, to offer meaning to those who already believe, not to convince those who never did. Because when you strip away the assumptions, you find something sobering. Most successful conversions happen within a religious context, between denominations, within families, among those already primed to believe. True outsider conversion, it's vanishingly rare. So the next time someone wonders why atheists don't respond to faith, maybe the better question is, were they ever supposed to? If this changed how you see belief and persuasion, subscribe, because the next episode goes even deeper.